our last session of investigating the deep ideas of the Najdorf. So we are ready to begin with the second lecture of today, referring to the Najdorf Endgames. So here we go. E4, this is a good grandmaster game. C5. What is the theme of these games that we are going to study right now? Black has a better knight, another quite common scene which I have noticed several times. Black has a better knight in the endgame against a worse white bishop. Let's see. That's a high-level game played in the European National Team Championship. Knight c3 and a6. So bishop e3, e5, and knight b3. In this position, as we have clarified, bishop e6 is the most common move, but bishop e7, intending bishop e6, is also entirely playable. So bishop e6, white has ideas besides short castling. He has ideas with f4, with f3, and with h3, or ignoring all of them and just go queen d2 and castle long. So let's see what happened. In this game, h3 was played. The advantage of this move h3, the idea of this move h3, is that he wants to push g4, and he may use his f pawn to put it directly on f4, rather than playing f3 and later f4. On the other hand, the disadvantage of this move h3 is that there is some instability in the center. In particular, this pawn is comparatively weak in some situations. So black played bishop e7. Once again, who remembers, who can think, who can tell why this move in this position is inaccurate? What is wrong with this move? It's not like a big problem or anything, but it's definitely not the best move. Very good. We already have the answer. Very good. White will transpose to this variation, bishop e2 and castle short, possibly to the Karpov system, or maybe even play f4 later, and this h5 move would be undesirable. First of all, if we castle short, we're even losing this pawn. So that's why h5 is premature. After h3, bishop e7 was played, but knight bd7 is also good. Queen f3, and now knight bd7. Black can even castle instead. g4, and now let's clarify something. When white plays g5 in the Najdorf, black must be, in most cases, let's say, in the vast majority of the cases, when white plays g5 threatening a knight, we must be in position to either play knight h5 or knight d7. We must avoid playing knight e8. If there is no other way, we will play knight e8, but then we know that something is wrong in our position. In other words, after g4, this move is not really good because white will continue with g5, and after knight e8, our knight is misplaced on e8. So what can black play? Black has to play h6 in this position. That was his plan, in order to stabilize, even temporarily, the knight on f6. White castles long. Who will suggest white not g6? Because g6 is not a good move in this position. Yes, for example, white will castle. White may avoid playing g5 here. He may play such moves later, or knight d5, and g6 will become a weakness most likely. So after g4, h6 has to be played, and white castles long. Why is this move a mistake, and in fact even and considerably big mistake. Why is this move a mistake? I just played bishop g2. In fact, there are two ways to punish this move, bishop g2. First of all, the bishop from g2 is losing control of the c4 square. So already this move becomes very tempting. However, very good. So bishop g4 is simply a bad move, which many players will commit. However, instead of knight b6, which is simply a good move, there is an even better move for black. Let's look again. There is an even better move instead of knight b6, which is simply very good. Which move is even better for black? The move is, in fact, rook c8. And now white is in big trouble after rook c8 because he doesn't know what to do. He cannot really play knight d5. We will collect this pawn either right away or after taking the knight. We can even collect it right away. He cannot, of course, castle long. The minute he castles, I will capture on c3 and I will give him the knight in his hands. Here, black has a huge advantage. So white, after rook c8, will possibly be forced to castle short, so that now the sacrifice with rook takes c3 is not so effective. It's meaningless. However, all this setup with h6, h3, g4 for white is totally meaningless if he's intending to castle short. Black can castle short, but there are two other rare but very effective ideas. Why are these ideas rare? Because they require a big mistake by white. They demand a big mistake by white. So here are the two ideas. Very good. One idea is knight f8. Very good. I see we have players with high knowledge of the Najdorf. Knight f8 intending knight g6. Very good. And maybe even here, knight g6, knight h7, too many weaknesses for white. And the other idea is this, look at this move, g5. The idea of g5 is to play h5 to fix this weakness and then attack. For example, white goes here. Now, to be honest, I wouldn't like to take on c2. White will play rook c1. He will have some initiative. I don't even want to take on d5. If I take with my bishop on d5, I am weakening the light squares. The good news, however, is that black can tolerate the knight on d5 for some time. Look, I play h5. What a nice idea. I tolerate the knight on d5, and I keep white's pieces closed. Look at this bishop on g2. It cannot breathe. For example, he takes here. I take with the queen. He takes here. I take on g4, and I take again on g4, and I take another time on g4. And this is, in fact, a very, very bad position for white. He may even be checkmated even in the endgame. I see some nice idea here, here, and here. Additionally, I am threatening a very vital tempo. This pawn is hanging, and this knight is in the worst possible square. It will take a long, long time for this knight to go to d5. The plan is so slow that white should better forget about it. Very good. So let's go back. g4, h6, we analyzed deeply, very deeply, why a move like bishop g2 is a mistake. We can also play knight b6, very good, instead of rook c8. So white castle long. White is a high-level grandmaster, of course. He is not expected to make such a mistake. Rook c8 comes, and knight d5. So knight f8. Indeed, this rare idea is playable. It's not as bad as it looks. It is quite playable. Knight here in order to go to g6. Knight g6, and after this unique idea, white is intending to castle short. I still don't like this bishop g2. Whenever I see it, I get angry. Bishop takes d5, e d5, and knight h4 for black. Let's continue. Now we play the moves a bit faster. Black managed to put the bishop in the required diagonal. So they play and play. Black has quite good pieces, and the knight is coming into the game. And now look what Black is doing. He plays here, yes, rook d3. He plays here, let's continue, bishop c6, bishop f6, intending to trade the knight. And after this, what an amazing move. Black played g takes f6. Black is a super high level player. Look, he took with a g pawn. Most players, I am afraid, maybe including myself, most players would automatically take with a knight. But no, Black goes way beyond, and he sees that he can tolerate this weakness. Now he's threatening this move and even this move. And additionally, White will have another very big positional problem, which is this bishop. If we manage to start playing behind this bishop on c6 will be totally dead. So g takes f6 is the good move. Rook c1 was played to avoid this double attack. King g7 protecting in advance here because these checks are always hanging in the air. So king a1 to get done with it. Now White is threatening rook e3. And finally the knight comes to c5. Amazing play by Black. Here White's problem now is the bishop on c6. b3 was played here and rook e2. Black needs to activate also this rook, of course. It's not so easy to activate this rook. He tries to do it through the b file because otherwise he has to play something like this, which loses too much time. So finally he managed to activate the rook this way. And he won a pawn, and he has a completely winning endgame. Let's see how they continued. They played and played, and they reached this completely winning endgame with one extra pawn. And the biggest problem is that this bishop on c6 is out of play. The knight is much better. So this move was played, threatening this very well-known checkmate. And look, another very nice positional sacrifice. He gives this pawn and king f6. So they play and play. Black collected the pawn. Look, until deeply in the endgame, this bishop is out of play. It cannot get back in the game. Here, White resigned because Black combines threats with d3, d2, promoting the pawn, and checkmate on the rook b1. Very good. So, very nice. Yes, I see here some note about one of mine games, and I see the resemblance. Yes, some Nimzo India. Very good. So where the play was played behind the bishop. Let's study another game, so typically in the Najdorf, where this is one of my favorite games, where the knight was much better than the bishop. So this is the game Polgar Sofia against Gata Kamsky. What is unique about this game is that it was played long time ago in 1988. These players, Sofia Polgar and Gata Kamsky, were around 15 years old at that time. Gata Kamsky's rating was already 2560 in this game, which is amazingly high for 1988. This did not start as a Najdorf, but it continued as a Scheveningen Najdorf. Let's see. And they played and played. Finally, the Najdorf set up with d6 and e5. So they continued. Black is defending very strongly, and then he is trying to take over little by little. Here, threatening knight g4. So here, knight h5, Black is very happy to trade the dark square bishops. He takes here, and now a very nice, courageous move by Black, high-level move. King g7, the idea of king g7 is to control the squares along the f file, and maybe to play this move on the next move, or maybe even queen d8 on the next move. So there is G3 was played. There is no G4, obviously, because of knight F4. So King G7, a super high level move. This is absolutely pointless. Black will just go Queen D8. So let's see what happened here. White played G3, and indeed Queen D8 happened here, and Queen C7. Let's see, Black is stabilizing little by little. Queen to E7, finally intending to play Rook F8. White played Bishop F1, Knight back to F6, let's see, and Rook to F8, putting the bishop to E6, even if it was not blundering, would have been absolutely meaningless. So Queen D3 was played. Of course, it goes without saying that White would have been very happy to trade this bishop for the knight, but nobody is giving this knight for this bishop. And Black also has a passed pawn, but it's still very, very early to push this pawn. It will only create weaknesses. Imagine if you push it, a king will appear on E3 or on D4 in the endgame. No, for now we need the pawn here. So Queen A7, a high level move, taking over the dark squares. The bishop is on E6, but it may end up out of play. Indeed, Queen B4, that's a super high level move, threatening the pawn on B2, and also threatening Queen E4 check. That was the real threat. So he has to take it, and knight takes it, and now Black has a much better endgame with a much better knight against a bishop. So here, king takes, and bishop c8 was played. a5, and king here. And now, already from this position, this is a nice exercise. I show this exercise to my students. How Black managed his thinking in scenes, he's thinking in pictures, in images, and how he managed to stabilize the position and stop any counterplay. Look what he did. He played b4. This is for sure. It has to be in dark squares. And bishop a6. And here is very instructive how Black manages to stabilize the position. He plays king here, knight to f6. You see, he doesn't play knight c5. Most likely I would have played here before I studied this game years ago. So now I know better. We will play knight f6. He plays knight f6 when it is necessary. King here. Let's see what will happen. And knight f6 threatening the pawn. And bishop c4. So with the knight on f6 and his h7 and g6 pawns, which he will move to dark squares on g5 and on h6, Black creates a fortress, a barrier on the king side, and with the knight on f6, and his king has a clear route to this square. Look how he thinks. Let's see it again. So he exchanges, and a5 and here. So he's thinking he will play b5, knight f6 with tempo, and now White doesn't want to go bishop e6 anymore, so he has to do something about it. So in that case, the knight will go to f6, bishop c4, he will block the king side and go with his king to c5. Already Black thought about all these things from this position, maybe even earlier. Of course, he's a high-level grandmaster, and he was thinking for quite some time. Yes, he wasn't thinking for 5 minutes. He was thinking for 25 minutes, and he entered very, very deeply into the position to see very, very deeply several moves, more than 20 moves, because the position allows it. And he found real good chances to win the game. So b4. Already, if you would ask him during the game, what is happening here, he could say, I'm winning by force, and now this is just a standard procedure. So the knight goes to f6 here whenever it is possible and forced, and he goes king d8. Black needs to be careful not to end up with white putting the pawns on dark squares. This is something that black must definitely avoid. Indeed, white played h4. If white plays g4, this is very easy. We go g5, and after this, we don't bother, just h6. White has created another weakness on g4, and our king will slowly come to c5 to seal the deal. And white plays h4. What is the idea of white, and how should black react here? Of course, black had seen this idea long time ago, several moves ago. How should black continue here? Because there is a positional threat by white. Very good. So the threat is g4 and g5. So black played h6, prophylactic move, and here he continues with king c7. He doesn't play g5 here. If there is no threat, if it's not forced, he doesn't spend a move. Now, let's clarify one thing, please. One may start complaining that, okay, how can Kamsky do that all the time? How can he prevent the counterplay with h6 and g5 and white has zero counterplay? Why can't I do this in my games almost never and my opponent has counterplay? First of all, the easy way to explain is that because Gata Kamsky is a super strong grandmaster, but no, this is a shallow explanation. So here is the real explanation. In the game of chess is made in such a way that almost every time, in 90% of the cases, our opponent has counterplay. In 90% of the games of chess, when two decent opponents are playing, one has good play, maybe better than the other, but the other one has counterplay. He is defending and he has some counterplay at some point because chess is full of resources. It is a very, very rare case that we get a position where our opponent has zero counterplay. This is very rare. This in front of us is one of these rare exceptions. In most cases, when Kamsky has won brilliant games, he won them because his opponent did have counterplay, but he had even stronger, better play. He calculated better. He knew how to handle the position and so on. This is one exception. Yes? So that's the answer. In most cases, most grandmasters, most players would have this position with white to move. And white would have played here, and white would have some play, but black is still better. Yes? And they would go to win this game, possibly with black, or make a draw. Very good. So this is what is happening. This game and games like this are exceptions. So here, king c7 was played, c4. Black must take en passant on c3 because he is running the danger of leaving the position way too close, and then winning might be problematic. So he has to open up the position. B takes c3 is the right move, in principle, in order to open it up and to have more available squares for the pieces. So here, finally g5, he takes it, c4, the king enters, and enters again, and e4 check, and this is now very, very easy. Kamsky won the game. Let's check another game. Let's check this one. So black is a better player here. He has a rating of around 2430, and white has a rating of 2190 approximately, close to 2200, which means that white is also a high-level amateur player, yes? Or maybe a very talented young player, professional player, but way too young at that moment in 2024. So let's see, bishop e7, h3 was played, and h6. What sort of move is this? This is one move which is mentioned in several PGNs. And this is an interesting move order to play the game, this h6. Very, very interesting. I am also suggesting something similar in such positions. Not exactly this, of course. Anyway, so h6. Yes, here rook g1 is kind of a strange move. Bishop e6 was played. Queen d2. Let's see, knight b d7 and a4. A4 is strategically problematic. Why? What is the problem? A4 together with rook g1 means that the white king has problem where to go. He cannot castle short, and if he castles long, then this A4 move is very dangerous. So black castles. This is very interesting. He castles. Maybe he could have waited for a couple of moves. For example, playing such a move like rook c8 here, intending knight b6, could have been very interesting, just to check what white wants to do. After castling, white at least can attack immediately with g4. Let's see what happened. Knight e8, knight d5, and look, bishop g5. Indeed, this is a good move. We have already seen this motive on a few occasions. Which motive? That we can tolerate the knight on d5 sometimes for a while. We respect the knight, we tolerate it for a while. It's almost certain that at some moment we will take it, but it's not like automatic. Whenever you see knight d5, you capture it. Yes, in most cases we will. Let's see what happened. White castles, and now it's a good moment to take it. And in positions where white has played ed5, trading the dark square bishops is very much into black's advantage. So they played and played. Knight b6, b5 would have been an even better move. Anyway, I will play the moves comparatively fast now. Black is now better in this position because his knight is better than the bishop. He played a5. This move a5, intending b6, and then move the knight, for example, to e8 and to f6, it also makes sense. And this idea, rook f to c8, intending to play b5 and maybe, not maybe, and take with the a pawn, this also makes sense. So a5 was played. Black is slightly better. g6, intending king g7, and rook h8. So b6, black is protecting everything. Oh, excuse me. Again, b6, rook f to c8. Yes, here, king to f8. And finally, knight to a6, now that black allowed it. Rook here trying to create some sort of counterplay, but the rook is isolated. Look, the rook is playing by himself. If rook takes d6, king e7 is trapping the rook. It's easy to see. It's easy to see, again, that knight. It's easy to see that knight b4 will be very good because this rook from c6 is playing by himself. The rook on g3 is not helping, and the bishop on b3 is not helping. So black found this move, and king e7, and he's better. Let's see, again back here, repeating moves. Rook takes on c8, rook takes on c8, and black is much better because he has a better knight. This move will certainly be played at some moment later. So rook c3 happened, and rook takes c3 after careful examination of the position. Knight a6, the king goes to c4, and knight here. Of course, the black knight does not intend to stay on c7 forever. Black will now bring the king here and finally free his knight to create play on the other side. So let's see, f3 was played, and king here and king b7. Black has some winning chances. Maybe with perfect play, it is a draw. So the knight goes back. Let's see. King a7, some waiting moves here, and king a6. Black is provoking b5. b5 would have been a horrible mistake. Of course, white must keep the tension. But white played this move. This is a very bad move. He couldn't stand the pressure. After which black plays b5 after serious consideration. And look what happens now. King a4. Unfortunately, white is forced now to take on a5, and king takes a5. Yes, such mistakes are quite possible when somebody is defending. Now there is no real play for white on the king side. His chances for counterplay have vanished, and now black has a free play. So he starts with these moves, putting the king on c5 and king c4. The position is already really very difficult. After this, for example, black will play something like this and knight a6, stopping any counterplay, and this is completely winning for black. Black may never need to play this f5 after all. So they played here. There is no real counterplay. Black won this fine game. Let's check one or two other games. Let's check just a second this game here. Yes, two not so high rated players, but I like the game. White has a rating of close to 1800 and black has a rating of close to 2000. So they are very decent amateur players. Let's see what happened. Bishop e6. Bishop e2 finally. I see bishop e2, I play bishop e7. Although in this position, this is also entirely playable. The idea of this move is to go for a very fast rook c8. Look, very fast rook c8. And to play knight b6, knight c4 very fast. Already, black will manage to play knight b6. For example, queen d2, I made sure for myself that I can play knight b6, knight c4, and rook takes c4. White cannot take it away from me. So I just go bishop e7. If he gives me another move, I will even castle. He goes here, threatening a5. Now it's time to go knight b6. And we succeeded in putting the knight here and taking with the rook. He goes f3, and now remember, this move is interesting to stop bishop g5, but it's not necessary. We can even castle, intending queen c8. For example, here, queen c8, queen c6, we triple the rooks, and black is better. So are all these lines by force, happening by force? No. If you ask your engine, it will find defenses for white. So let's see. Here, f3 was played, typically a weak move, completely meaningless move. Knight bd7 for black. If black is allowed on the next move, let's suppose that white plays here. Now, this is a real question. Doesn't have to do with endgames, but let's answer it within within 1 minute. So let's say that our opponent doesn't know what he's doing. He's playing f3 and he doesn't have a clue. Black, after completing the development of his minor pieces, has two ideas. One is b5. Now we can possibly play b5. But the other one, and even better one in my opinion, is rook c8 followed by knight b6 and knight c4 and take with the rook and maybe later b5. This is what I would have played with black. Rook c8, we have more than enough time to play knight b6, knight c4, capture with the rook, maybe triple on the c file, and around that point play b5 if white doesn't play a4 in the meanwhile. Very good. Let's see what happened here. Yes, we can take with a knight or with a bishop. Both are good. Here, this is quite good. c4. And how should black continue here? Why don't you give me the answer? How should black continue in this position? Let's see. Bishop g6 is a very good move. It has only one problem, that there is a better move. There is a better move. Which move is that? you see, black has the following problem. He has 2 or 3 very good moves. So let me tell you, this is a very good move. This is a very good move. But possibly the best one is this, because we are very happy to trade the dark square bishops when you see ed5. So I also like though a5 very much. I don't know, probably I would have played a5. Anyway, bishop here, and he takes it, and b6, black should be slightly better. a5 here, bishop takes e4. No, I don't believe this is a good move. We can tolerate the knight for a while. Let's play this move, or even queen c7. Then we go back, intending f5 at some moment, and so on. So he took here, this is a bit premature, and queen c7. Anyway, still black is doing well. White should have taken some precautions against these actions. Now everything is exchanged. I like this move very much. Here, b takes, and black has the advantage in this endgame. Black already has a passed pawn, while white can never create a passed pawn. So here, g6, besides we can always play g5, king g7. So black didn't play in the best possible way in this position, but still he managed to win the game. Came here. The idea of knight b6 is that in case white goes here, black will play knight b6. So let's see what happened. Let's play the moves a little bit fast. Around this point, there was one mistake. So here, possibly, I don't know, bishop g4 check. But here, this move was played. Let's see. How should black continue in this position after bishop c2? Should black play knight f6, knight f4, knight g3? What should he do? There is a very nice typical technique which can be seen in more difficult positions. This is even an easy one. Let's see. There is a very nice idea for black to proceed here, practically to win by force. Black can win by force in a few moves. How can he do that? Black can force the white king to retreat and then enter with his own king. So how to do that? It has already been found by some of the players. Knight g3. Next move is king e5, knight f5 check. The white king will retreat. The black king enters, and this is completely winning, of course. So here, if bishop g4, we are not afraid of ghosts. Knight f5 check, because he can never play b4 and he can never play g3. Black is completely winning here. So check, black enters, and this is a completely winning game with a better knight. Very good. Let's change the subject and let's see some endgames which are also quite common in the Najdorf, and they are very unique, so unique that it's not even very clear, very easy to describe them. They have this unique energy and very little material. Let's say Najdorf, where they end up in endgames where there are pawns only on one flank and even very few pawns, only on one side of the board. I have played several times such endgames, and I have seen several times such endgames. Let's see a few of them. This is one very high-level game that I played in 2013. I played this line. I was tremendously successful with this line, but this line is objectively dubious. I was beating everybody, almost everybody. It is very interesting, but strategically very comical. Possibly white must play a4. Black will play here and knight b4. There is counterplay, but we also have a lot of weaknesses with this a5. So anyway, let's see what happened. Queen e1 was played, knight a6, knight a4. And here I played this great move. I knew very well the theory of this position. Actually, this was analysis. They have never been played before. Look at this wonderful move, rook c8. What a nice thing is the Sicilian. What a nice... So look what happens here. White can play bishop b6, knight b6, knight takes a5, queen takes a5, bishop takes a6 first, and then win the pawn on a5. Look what happened. He took here. So b takes a6. And what is happening if he takes on a5? Now or even right away, there is a very surprising slap in the face. White all of a sudden will wake up from his sleep. A fantastic move for black, which is a really fantastic move for black. Really fantastic. Spectacular move. Who will find it? The move bishop takes b3 is also interesting, but there is a much better move. Bishop takes b3 is the idea. How to work on it a little bit. Rook takes c2. He cannot take it because he is losing the queen. And after that, we can just trade here and win this pawn. So let's see what happened. After taking here and knight b6, it appears as if White is doing great in this anti-theoretical, completely anti-theoretical position. He is threatening the rook, he is threatening the pawn on a5, and here comes my move, which, to be honest, I already knew because I had analyzed these positions very deeply. Look at this fantastic move. Queen c7. If you ask your engine, it suggests queen c7. So here, threatening checkmate. He played here. If he takes it, there is big trouble. I take with the rook. And for example, if he defends here, I go a4, I push him back here, and now I can take on a2 with a winning position for black, or I can also play d5, again with a winning position for black. So look what happened. After this, I played a4, he takes it, and d5 with a very good position for black. Tremendous compensation. So here, I did a lot of calculation, really very deep. Look, strategically, you may say that black is worse. Yes, but he has a lot of energy. This move is on the agenda, and of course, this move at any moment. So I went back, and I'm threatening a4. This is just calculation, and e4, of course. There are a lot of dynamics. If white had this pawn here, then he is relaxed, my bishop is not playing, and that would have been a different story. But he played queen e4, yes, but the queen is very nicely centralized, but soon it will have to go. According to the engine, this is even better. a4, what a fantastic move. He takes it, and now I open up all the files. I have play on the A, B, and C file, and his queen stands well on E4, but it can never move because I will push E4. Additionally, I'm threatening these checkmates with bishop G5. He has to spend more time. Anyway, the rook F7 is also very good. Black is better in this position, in fact. So I played here. There is a lot of calculation. And queen c6, threatening to trap the queen. The queen is very misplaced on a5. He has to go here, and I win this pawn, and queen d6. All this is deep calculation. So this move was played, these ideas were forced, and I ended up with an ugly extra pawn, which I will definitely not allow knight d2 and knight e4. I had seen in advance that I will play e4 here. You see, we reached the end game, and my initiative still goes on. So several times I have seen positions like this when the play is concentrated only on one side, on the king side. So here I am entering with my rook, and sooner or later I will steal a pawn. Let's see what happened. I played here. Bishop g5 is the threat. So he played here, and I won this pawn on g2, and knight f3. we reach this position. Very often in the Najdorf, I have seen such examples. Little material, limited material, and play only on one side of the board. The other side has all disappeared, all the pieces and all the pawns. So black has good winning chances, although the fact that I have a wrong corner bishop is, of course, against me. So, but I could fill these positions quite well, and I could find good moves. So here I played g5. I start threatening ideas with g4, and so I am more or less forcing him to play rook g1. He played rook g1, and I took the rook, and here I played bishop e5, and king f7. Soon I will play h5. Let's see, h5. So here I have very, very good positions. There were some other ideas with e5, but again, white was in trouble. So let's focus here. Now, black has very good winning chances in this position because we are not forced to play g4. If I play g4, he will take it, and we exchanged way too many pawns. The threat is stronger than the execution. The threat of g4, always hanging, is stronger than playing g4 by myself. So here there is this typical idea. He played king f3, I played king e7, and knight e2. There is this typical idea where the knight, if it goes out into the ocean here, marking time, the knight will be trapped by my king and my bishop, almost always. And if the knight stays close here to his king, then I will combine threats with creating the passed pawn, and I will dominate, restrict the knight, and I will win the game. I knew this idea, I knew this technique, and I was almost certain, after calculating some things, you cannot calculate everything until the end, that I could get it. Look, it seems as if the knight can always move far away into the ocean. No, the king and the bishop, especially if some pawn helps, and here you see this pawn does control the e6 square, and if necessary, it can go here and it can control the d4 square. So way too many pieces controlling the knight, and I played this high-level move. He played knight c6 check, and the knight was finally trapped. If he goes knight c2 check, look, we will have the other way, king c3, and now, if he plays here, look, little by little, I restrict the knight. The king is coming here, bishop to e5, look, king to d2, the knight has nowhere to go, and after this, king e2, and here, black is completely winning. So let's see what is happening if after this, he goes knight a3. Look at this fantastic prophylactic idea. I am getting ready to meet knight b5 check. I go bishop b8, controlling all the squares. And now look what happens. He gives this check, king c4. I skillfully limit his knight. He goes here, king b3. He goes here again, black to play and win. You see, his king cannot come to the help because g4 will be played. So black to play and win in this nice endgame. Let's see. All of a sudden, very good. e5, and then king b4 comes. This is geometry. This is not chess. King b4 is coming, and the knight is trapped. Very good. So let's see. I knew this already from a position like this with h4. The characteristic of this position is that white cannot force me to push these pawns. I can keep them there forever, and his king will be occupied with the defense of these pawns. This is very much to my advantage. So let's see what happened. After this, here, he entered. So far, we were investigating knight c2 check. I played here, and he played knight e7 here. This is losing. The knight will be trapped on the other side. Look, my king is coming to e8 and to f7. So let's see. He gave this check, and king c6 is a very high level move. He played here, king c5. We see that the knight is in trouble. He played here, and look at this very nice move. Bishop d6. My opponent resigned here after bishop d6. What is the idea? The idea is to play here, and then king c6, king b7. So here is a possible continuation. I go bishop f8. He plays if here, look, the king is coming, and slowly I arrest this knight. You see, it went to the other side in the open ocean, in the open sea, and it got trapped. And if he plays e5, yes, am I lucky that this idea exists? Well, I am making use of my chances. Yes, king d7 and g4, black is winning. So I managed to win this nice game. Are there other games with limited play on the other side, on the one side? Unlimited games. Let's check this great game by Vladimir Fedoseev. Really fantastic game. So it started as a Taimanov, it continued as a Seven-Igen Najdorf. So they play and play. We don't care about some exchange sacrifice. We don't care about what happened earlier in the middle game. So they play and play, and they reached this endgame and rook e3. So is this endgame winning, or is it a draw? White's idea is to defend this pawn forever, or from the second round and move up and down. So let's clarify. Black is almost certainly winning this endgame, but it is very, very important. First of all, we will put our pieces very slowly in active squares, targeting his weaknesses. This is definitely coming here, and we will target his weaknesses. And one thing that needs to be taken very seriously into consideration: we do not touch our pawn. The pawn will stay to g7 forever until we see if we can do something with it. It is a very big mistake to put it here under any circumstances, because it invites the exchange of the pawns with g4, king g6, king g3, and h4 at any moment. So let's see his technique. The king will go out. Let's see. They play up and down. Black is not in a hurry. He found some amazing ideas. They play and play, trying various things, various ideas. So let's see what happened. Black doesn't want to play here and allow this move, so he's blocking it. And here you see, because this is back, the pawn endgame is winning because this is back. If I put it here, it's going to be a draw. So they continue, king f4, king here again, up and down. g6 finally, yes, g6 is good. The pawn will go as far as g6. It will never move again. And with the bishop on e4, it is protected forever. You see, this is how we could think already from the start when we got this endgame. I'm going backwards. So here, when we got this endgame, already we can understand that this will come here and g6 will be played. So let's proceed very fast with the moves. I'm continuing g6, up and down. And rook d3. Again, the pawn endgame is, the minor piece endgame is winning if we exchange the rooks. So the rook has to stay in the game. And now the rook has nowhere to go. It goes to g3. If actually rook, If it goes here, look what happens now. Bishop e4. This is not possible because of rook c2. So poor white is forced, look what we did, to defend this pawn passively. And now king f4 is a wonderful Zugzwang. White cannot play king h1 because of king g3. And look how nice it is. Check. The king goes here, and king h4. What an amazing Zugzwang. Already the engine is giving a forced checkmate in a few moves. So the way to play in such an endgame, the way to think in such an endgame is that we will put our pieces in very active squares. For the moment, it doesn't look possible. Yes, if you think about it from this position, it doesn't look possible. But slowly, we will do it. We will put the rook here, the rook on c2, and this is the idea. And Vladimir Fedoseev won a very, very nice game. Very good. Let's check one last game with limited material only on one side. So let's see another Najdorf game. They play and play. Yes, some theories there. So bishop takes c6. In fact, according to the engine, white was better in this position for some time, but tremendous accuracy is needed. White has rook and two pawns for two minor pieces. Yes, but the minor pieces are quite powerful here, and now one pawn was lost, and they kept on playing and playing, and they reached this position, up and down, and here quite often, for example, there is a game Nigel Short-Kasparov, where Kasparov won with black. Quite often you can get such a position with minor pieces and pawns on one side of the board. I believe the pawn on e4 will be lost, and this position should possibly be winning for black. The rook defends well against two pieces. It's not easy to win, especially against knight and bishop. That's, as you have heard me saying several times, the worst combination of pieces for black to play against the rook. What does this mean? Are we worse? No, it means that our winning chances are limited. If we had the bishop on e5, for example, we would have won quite easily. So they play and play. The first target is to win the pawn. Indeed, the pawn was won, and now the game continues. Finally, this was much easier because white made some mistakes. So here, and again, the game was played for too long, exactly because the rook fights well against two minor pieces. And because black wanted to avoid this advance at all time, and for this reason, she put her bishop on a4. On the other hand, though, the bishop is slightly misplaced on a4. So they continued, they played here, and finally, after a lot of efforts and a lot of try, black managed to win. They got to this endgame, and of course, black won it. Let's check another game now. Let's check this game. So here, this is a win, an easy win. Players of around 2000 are playing, an easy win for black. h3, g6, the right move order, castles, and knight h5. This is very interesting, and knight g3. So here, queen d3. I would have probably taken the queen. Black played queen e5, which is also very good. But taking the queen is also very good for black. After this, we are probably threatening to take the knight on c3. So let's say he jumps here. Black is better even after taking and playing knight e5. This position is better in the middle game for black and even in the end game. But black, as we have already learned, can possibly even tolerate this knight for a while, not forever. and we can castle. Black has a quite nice advantage. Let's see what happened. Queen e5, a3, b5. Black is much better. I play the moves now comparatively fast. And in this position, Black is thinking whether to take on c3 or not. What do you think? Should Black take on c3 or not? I will tell you my opinion. I don't know what the engine is saying. I will tell you my opinion, how I would think during the game. For example, I am thinking, because the bishop is indeed very powerful, the bishop on g7. Bishop e5, knight d5. White will jump knight d5. He cannot allow bishop takes c3 all the time. So bishop e5, knight d5. Let's say king d7, bishop e2, c3. Yes, black is better, but I have the feeling that this is a smaller and less clear advantage. If they would tell me, isn't black better here? Yes, of course, we cannot castle. Yeah? Of course, black is better, but this advantage appears to be smaller. Let's say here, c3, for example, and here a5 and so on, but there is play for white. So instead of playing this position, which is better for black, of course, I prefer here something more clear in my head. Bishop takes c3. Yes, I like this move, and I consider this advantage even bigger. And king e7. Here, with weaknesses on e4 and on the other side. One of our plans is, of course, to do this, because the king is quite safe on e5. So the rook comes to c8, rook c5. Look, don't you agree that this advantage is bigger than before? In my opinion, it is. Here, for example, rook g5 is a great move, because if he goes here, white will lose very fast. h5. So if we go back and compare these two advantages, yes, the bishop on e5 would look so powerful that we may get confused. However, if you think about it, things are a lot more clear here, a lot more clear, right? So rook g5, and here h5 was played because black can play h4 by force. h4 fixing the structure, very well played by black. So the king comes up, g5, and here. So black was better. We won't continue this game anymore. Later he won the game. Very good. By simply having a better, much better pawn structure. Let us now consider something else. Let's consider in this high-level old game, 1998, Kudrin Sergey against Alex Yermolinsky. They are playing in 1998. Let's consider, yes, this is a Richter-Hauser, but it became some Scheveningen in the end. So black plays b5, and let's see what happens now. White took on f6, and black is thinking, should I take with a bishop or should I take with a pawn? There is nothing to think. I will take with a bishop. If the queens were out, I can also take with a pawn. This position without the queens is good for black, very good. Let's suppose that we were, for example, here. Yes, indeed, this position is considered, all these positions, very good for black. Very good. We are already masters in maneuvering this bishop. We are looking for ways to bring it here and so on. Very good. So, but here, bishop takes is the right move. Queen takes d6, and now this move has to be considered. It looks quite good. However, we are now talking about endgames where we have lost or sacrificed our pawn on d6. So does black have compensation here? The answer is yes. He has good compensation due to the powerful bishop on f6 and due to the fact that white's extra pawn, the pawn on c2, is not so important, although this rule that we mentioned mainly applies in the middle game. This pawn on c2 is not the pawn on c2 is not so important very early in the game. Black cannot really create any tremendous threats. He cannot give checkmate, for example. Let's see what happened. Black played knight b5, possibly even intending to take on c2, but in some cases to also, of course, take on c3 and take on a2 afterwards. Bishop c3 and knight a2. This is what happened. And black plays bishop e5. That's a nice move, kicking the annoying rook away. By the way, let's consider something. Let's suppose that I play here, which is not a good move, and white plays a random move. Look, now this move can be very dangerous. Look, I don't like this position at all. Now white is better. White can play such moves, such moves. He can hit this pawn structure with c4 and doubling the pawns, or a4 and so on. So the answer is no. Yes, has very active pieces. If this rook is very active, this knight can jump left and right. His bishop on e2 is perfectly fine. So here, white has a very clear advantage. White has a winning position here. There is no compensation at all. Very good. So let's see what happened. He skillfully kicks the rook away, and then he kicks the knight away. Bishop e5 again to check white's intentions. White wants a draw. And finally, black plays here. Let's see what happens now. Rook takes, but now the c2 pawn is under threat, and also bishop takes c3 is a threat. It seems that black has taken over, because if you think about it, black has very active pieces now. The remaining pieces are very active for black. And what does white have for that? One pawn on c2, which is even hanging. He played a4, trying to trade some pieces. And this is what happened. He takes here, threatening the bishop with check here, and a takes b5. I don't know if this was the best that black could do, but he does seem to have an advantage. He took here finally, and here. I believe that with good play, black can defend, white can defend this position. h6 and g5 is a very basic idea, because white will either break his position, we are threatening such moves, we can come with our king here, or white can play something like this, and then what happens, I will show you. Let's say they play up and down. The black king finds a wonderful square on f5. Is this a typical idea? Yes, a very typical idea. Playing g5, taking on f4. Let's see it again. Theoretically speaking, we play h6, g5. If he takes on g5, he breaks his pawn structure. If he doesn't take, he keeps his pawn structure, but g5, g5, our king can go to f5. It has happened several times also in my games. I have won a few games like that. So they played and played, finally threatening king f5 to win the pawn. He had to play this, and now there are winning chances because he will win a pawn. Black has to risk somehow, position with zero risk. So he took here, and maybe, who knows, with perfect play, this is a draw. I don't think so. So g4 and rook g8. Look at this very nice idea. This check and rook d8 shows a lot of experience. the rook can go to g8 to start pushing the pawn, and the rook is also defending against this pawn. So let's see what happened. Yes, some Zugzwang, they play up and down. Yes, it was a quite easy win for Black, in fact. With good technique, he won this endgame. Very well played. Let's check another endgame where Black, in his Najdorf play, this time in a different variation, he again sacrifices the pawn on d6. So let's see, this is basic theory. Bishop here, and castles, castles, knight c5 with interesting counterplay for Black. g4, Black goes back in order to free his b pawn. So here, and b5, a3. Black can take this bishop, but this is not so tremendous. White will take with a pawn, and he will put his rook here. So Black usually doesn't take this bishop. He plays here, intending at some moment to push these pawns. Let's see what happened here. And this knight e2 move appears to be threatening bishop takes f6. However, it's a bad move. Black played a5. Black is using the moment to play a5. Of course, if it is Black to move, he plays here and he gives a checkmate. So White took here, and now Black is thinking, it may make sense to also take with a g pawn because Black has started a very quick attack on this side. However, g takes can be proved to be the worst move of the century. Yes, when you are able to take like this and you take with a pawn. So, in fact, after serious consideration, this move was played, which is better. White has to take on d6 here. If he plays g5, Black can go simply bishop e7. Sometimes you can even see this move, like Kasparov played. The idea of this move is to provoke f4, and only now I take it. Look here, it looks very powerful, and I manage after f4 to weaken this point. Now I go b4, and this is, Black can resign here. White can resign, not Black. Very good. So in fact, after g5, look at this typical idea, bishop to e5. This idea has to be considered, and indeed here it is working well. If White starts defending, he will lose for sure, and he is running the danger, White is running the danger that Black will be left with a bishop on e5 permanently. In that case, White can even lose 2-0 in one game. So let's see what happened. Queen takes d6, and indeed Black enters this endgame, and he plays b4. Takes, knight a2. Black has tremendous compensation in this position because he has two powerful bishops, especially the dark square bishop. And White, what does White has to show for this? Only one pawn here. Let's see what happened. Rook a7, very high level move. He wants to double the rooks while protecting this bishop. White played here, and rook f2 e8, knight here, bishop g5, creating some threats. Let's see here, king f8, trying to stabilize. So there is big compensation. You see, Black is not winning by force. And here Black found a fantastic move. Maybe he had seen it in advance. He played this. All the pieces are hanging, but the knight on a2 is also hanging. So knight takes, bishop takes, and bishop e2. The bishops are so powerful. You see some like annoying mosquitoes. And here he won the exchange. Black won the exchange. The white knights continue being passive. How to play with Black here? How should Black continue in this position? Hmm? I would like to see one good move for black here. Let's see. Which is one good move for black here? I can try this. I'm threatening to take here and give checkmate, but he will do, no, he cannot do this. Bishop here, it is very interesting, yes. So h5 is also very interesting. And look at the move that black played indeed. g5, yes. This is also interesting, fixing the pawn structure. And now white cannot move his pawns on the king side. I would like to, if I don't have anything better to do, if I don't have any checkmate, to maybe play here an h5, and after h3, I can play h4, but we should better open some files for the rooks. Very good. Let's see what happened. King g6. So some moves, maybe around here, the advantage was a little bit lost. Black, in the end, won the game. Let's check another game, high-level game, rook endgames that are typical in the Najdorf. So let's see, they play this old line which Kasparov used to play with black. So we are playing the moves fast. And they reach this position. Is there much to see? No. Black has a big advantage, of course. He has one or two pawns up. He's going to win this game. Yes, okay. They just enter a rook endgame where black has calculated several moves. Here, black creates a chain with his rook, and he plays king f8. And the answer is, the question is if white can take on b3. It seems that he cannot take. King e7. Finally, he took, and look what happens now. Black had seen in advance. Black wants to eliminate the pawn on g4. Look at this wonderful idea. Maybe white should play h3 here, but again, he will lose. Look, he took here, and now black has a setup which doesn't break, and with these two pawns, f and d, and he can slowly go with his king to capture the pawn on b2. Look what he did. He played f5. And after that, he played f4. And after that, he played d5. You see, this structure doesn't break. If white plays here, black is bringing the rook. Let's say the king. Let's say that our king was here and it just comes here. You will see that it's not a matter of tempi. He goes here, threatening to play king f3 and even win the game. But typically, how will black continue here? Of course, these two pawns can never be reached. Black will typically play d4. So after this, for example, d3, and the same motive appears again. So black calmly comes and collects this pawn. The only moves that white can play is these two, up and down. And black goes to collect the pawn on b2 and he wins. This is what happened in this game. They got to this position and f3, and white resigned here in this endgame. Very good. So here is another fantastic endgame, but I would like to check this one. So let's take the black pieces again, because we are mainly studying it from black's point of view. So this is a Scheveningen, in fact, Scheveningen Najdorf. So they play and play. Here and g4, very good. Knight d7, a better move for black would have been b4. So knight d7. In this position, white played bishop takes e6. Usually, giving the bishop here and winning 2 pawns and the rook for 2 pieces is good for black, usually, surprisingly. So here, usually it is good for black. Let's clarify something. If white could win the g7 pawn, look, I play here, and this time the sacrifice is very good. White is interested to win 2 pawns there on e6 and the g7 pawn. Whenever he can do that, white is almost always winning. Whenever he can win 3 pawns for the piece after a sacrifice on e6. However, strangely enough, when white can win 2 pawns and not the pawn on g7, but the rook on f8, in most cases, black has very good play. This game, this position is an exception. Like after this, again, white is better for some reason, indeed, or even after keeping the queens, let's say we don't go here, we play here. So in this position, let's say bishop takes, usually in such positions, black has very good play. But the engine, for some reason, says that white is better here. Practically, it's totally playable for black. So what is strange, white is interested to take on e6, win 2 pawns, and win the g7 pawn, and not the rook. So this is what I like to say. Theoretically, I'm creating a non-existing position. Let's say that here, this is here, I play a random move, and this is here, so, which is a non-existing position. However, the strange thing is that in general, not in this position 100%, but in general, it is better for white to take on g7 rather than take on f8 to win a 3rd pawn. And whenever he can do that, he is almost always better, almost always winning. But so this is the right move for white. But if he takes here, we will take back somehow, let's say, with the king, and let's play a few less good moves. So we get a totally playable position for black. Very good. This is what happened. But this game is an exception. He takes on e6, he takes the rook, and he is better. So they played and played this game. Why don't we take the white pieces after a while? Here, let's take the white pieces one time. So white has now rook and 2 pawns for the pieces. This tends to be very good. Rook and pawns. So he entered this endgame. Rook and 2 pawns for 2 pieces. And additionally, black has the worst combination of pieces. We have said that several times. The worst combination of pieces is knight and bishop. Very good. So the white king here is very safe. White will play to create a passed pawn slowly. I won't just go c4 here. This is very premature. So they play and play, improve the pieces. And this is a more or less easy win for white. White managed to undouble his pawns, and this is an easy win. We can clearly see that the bishop and the knight do not cooperate well against the rook. They cannot create threats against our king. They cannot really threaten anything. So this is a matter of time, and slowly he won the game, and we were expecting to see this, yes, to break this blockade and start pushing the pawns, and this is what happened. This is a very easy win for white. He started pushing his pawns. Very easy calculation, and he won the game. Let's check another game in this style. Let's check this game, which I have shown it on 1 or 2 more occasions, because it had to be shown. So this game was played many years ago. The 2 players that are playing are particularly young. And here, queen b6 is a big mistake if white can castle long, protecting both the knight on d4 and the pawn on b2. But young children are playing, so they are forgiven. So the game goes on, and black and white won 2 pawns and the exchange for 2 pieces. This is acceptable for black, but losing the g7 pawn is not acceptable. So here, and knight takes, the position is playable with chances for both sides. Some complications left and right. And this is what happened. Objectively, white is still better. They played here, white cannot take on f6. He will lose the queen after bishop takes a2. So they play, and they got to this position, bishop here, and rook takes f6. Indeed, white has a very big advantage. Objectively, he is almost winning because he has rook and 2 pawns for 2 minor pieces in the endgame. And rook and pawns in the endgame tend to be much better than 2 minor pieces, especially bishop and knight. Very good. So here, black is thinking, and black played the move rook f8. In fact, let's comment on this move. The move rook f8 is 2 question marks, after which black has absolutely no chance to save the game, and indeed, she lost the game. So black must keep his rook on the board in order, his pieces on the board in general, in order to create what we call coordination of pieces. This is the only thing that can create practical problems for white. But in order to have coordination of pieces, you have to have pieces. So rook f8 is a very, very bad move. It makes things very simple for white. And additionally, this is completely winning for white. Additionally, here, there is another problem. After trading the rooks, we have explained this situation on several occasions, this strategical motive. After trading the rooks, white can very easily activate his king. Indeed, he played b3, king b2, and with a knight and bishop, I can even put the king here, so to speak. I can put it here. I'm not afraid of anything. I can put it here. All black can ever have is a check. So the king can come here carefully, of course, and it can enter. But if we keep one rook, this is impossible. So black in this position should have played bishop c6. And after, let's say, rook e1, knight g6, indeed, white is much better. He has good winning chances, but the game goes on. Let's suppose he plays here, and black goes rook d8, and there is still a lot of play. Now it's more complicated. And if white goes wrong and black manages to combine his 3 pieces targeting in the same direction, he can maybe even win the game after big mistakes by white. Very good. In the end, in this game, after the exchange of the rooks, naturally, white won very easily. I would like to thank you very much for your attention and for your participation in these lectures. I believe and I hope that you learned several things about the Najdorf, typical ideas in the middle game, in the end game, and so on. We analyzed it as deeply as it was meaningful.
Thank you very much, Yanis, for this excellent camp. I'm sure all the participants enjoyed as much as I did. Really very, very instructive stuff. So now our participants are ready to start playing the Najdorf, especially if they take a look at your previous Najdorf camps.
Very good. Thank you all very much, and hope to see you again in some other lecture. Bye for now and take care.
Goodbye and all the best to you. Okay, guys, now it's time.